On July 31, 2022, a precision Russian missile bypassed military targets to strike the bedroom of a 74-year-old civilian in Mykolaiv. Oleksiy Vadotursky, the billionaire grain tycoon whose logistics empire single-handedly fed millions of people across the globe. His assassination was not an accident. When a single nation controls the calories that keep 500 million people alive, what happens when a superpower decides that global starvation is a legitimate weapon of war? A ghost fleet rotting in the Bosporus, a shadow network of river barges, and the militarization of human survival. This is the true cost of bread. The story of this crisis does not begin with bullets. It begins with dirt. Ukraine is blanketed in a geologic anomaly called Chernozem, or black soil. It is some of the most fertile land on the planet, possessing a carbon-rich depth that makes it an agricultural superweapon. Ukraine's Chernozem doesn't just grow food, it underwrites the political stability of the Middle East and Africa. Before 2022, the grain pulled from this dirt fed an astonishing number of people. 400 million lives depended on a logistics network built largely by one man. Oleksiy Vadotursky was an engineer who looked at post-Soviet Ukraine and saw an empire waiting to be built. He founded Nibulon in 1991. Over 3 decades, he constructed his own fleet of ships, dredged rivers with his own money, and built grain terminals that operated with Swiss precision. By 2021, his empire had made him a king. But the wealth was a byproduct. Power was the real commodity. Take Lebanon, a nation already teetering on the edge of economic collapse. Before the war, Lebanon imported a staggering amount of its wheat directly from Ukraine. Or look at Cairo, the world's largest importer of wheat. Here, the government provides subsidized bread, known as Aish Baladi, to 70 million citizens. It is the unwritten contract of the state: keep the bread cheap, and the people won't revolt. If a naval blockade in the Black Sea can spark a bread riot in Cairo, who really holds the power? Vadotursky knew this. He believed his empire was too big to fail, too essential to touch. But building an empire that feeds 400 million people comes with a fatal geographical vulnerability. Every single grain of that power has to pass through a strip of water just 2 miles wide. If you want to understand the exact choke points that secretly govern your world, Decoded maps these hidden systems out every week. That 2-mile strip was about to become the most contested water on Earth. February 24, 2022, Russian warships seal off the port of Odesa. The flow of calories stops instantly. Inside the silos, the scale of the hostage crisis is incomprehensible. You walk into a bakery in Cairo, the price of flour has spiked overnight. Your government is bleeding cash just to keep the ovens burning. Panic sets in. The United Nations warns of an unprecedented wave of global famine. And in Mykolaiv, Oleksiy Vadotursky makes his fatal mistake. His friends begged him to evacuate. The front line was miles away. He possessed an unwavering, hubristic belief that his agricultural empire and its necessity to global survival made him politically and militarily untouchable. He refused to leave. He insisted on staying to personally reroute millions of tons of trapped grain through the Danube River. By July, the diplomatic pressure becomes unbearable. On July 22, 2022, in Istanbul, a breakthrough. The Black Sea Grain Initiative is signed. The media cheers, the grain will flow, the famine is cancelled. But the UN-brokered deal wasn't a peace treaty. It was a ransom note. The agreement required all outgoing ships to be inspected in Istanbul by a joint committee, including Russian officers. They quickly realized They didn't need to fire torpedoes to stop the grain. They just needed to weaponize time. Inspectors deliberately stalled ships in the Bosporus. Weeks passed, millions of tons of food began to rot in the hulls. If a piece of paper signed in a palace doesn't actually feed anyone, who is really in control? World Decoded exposes the gap between what treaties say and how systems actually break. If you want to see the truth behind the headlines, subscribe. Vadotursky saw the trap. He knew the Black Sea was dead to him. He was actively bypassing the blockade, constructing an entirely new river logistics network out of the reach of the fleet. He wasn't just a CEO anymore. He was a strategic military threat. And just 9 days after the ink dried on the deal that was supposed to save the world from hunger, a Russian missile found the exact coordinates of the man who built the system. He was 74. He died in his bed alongside his wife. His wealth, his empire, his global necessity, none of it mattered. We think of modern warfare in terms of silicon chips and hypersonic missiles. But what if the ultimate weapon is an empty grain silo 5,000 miles away? With Vadotursky dead, the market expected total collapse. But the system he built was too deeply ingrained in the soil to die with one man. The global food system didn't entirely break, but it forever mutated. Ukraine abandoned the Black Sea. They finished Vadotursky's final project. They built a shadow logistics network of trains, trucks, and river barges moving through the Danube. It was slower, it was more expensive, but it proved that food security is now a militarized domain. And on the ground, the human cost is absolute. In the heavily mined fields of Kherson, farmers now clear unexploded ordnance by hand to plant the next season's crop. Listen to what one of them said.
"We are driving tractors in bulletproof vests. If we hit a mine, we die.
But if we stop planting, people we will never meet will starve." Remember that $8 billion grain empire. It survives, but it runs on blood. The missiles in Ukraine didn't just shatter silos. They shattered the illusion of a secure globalized world, proving that whoever controls the harvest controls the future. But using logistics as a weapon isn't new. This blockade copied a playbook written 20 years earlier by a man who never got caught. If you want to know who really owns the shipping lanes that deliver everything you buy, hit subscribe.